working remotely. And just to say, unless people attending online are speaking, we just request that they keep their cameras and microphones off, just so that it protects the quality of the line for people who are joining us remotely. And just for everybody's information, this meeting is being live webcast and the recording of this meeting will be put on the council's website. So I'd like to formally welcome everyone to this evening's hybrid Sittingbourne Area Committee meeting and welcome to anyone who is joining us online. The following 12 Borough Council officers are in attendance. We have the Active Travel Coordinator, Michelle Anderson, Policy Engagement Officer, Janet Dart, and we will be joined by the Chief Executive, Larissa Reid. And later on in the meeting, we will also be joined by Andre Bowen, who is the Service Improvement and Projects Manager, who will be joining us online. Also joining us this evening is Roland Eglinton, Chalkwell Coach Hire. We had hoped to be joined by representatives from Stagecoach, but due to driver sickness, they've been pulled in to drive buses, so they won't be joining us, but they will answer any questions and we will obviously circulate that to people at the meeting afterwards. And we're also joined by Freya Alder and George Patterson from South Eastern Railway, who will both be joining us online. We also have in attendance KCC councillors Chris Palmer and Paul Webb, and other visiting councillors too. Welcome. Are there any representatives of local organisations in attendance who would like to make themselves known? Obviously, when you come to speak to any item, if people could just introduce themselves and either say then what organisation they're from or where in Sittingbourne they're from. But any local organisations want to make themselves known? Yep.
Jackie Davidson, Spurwell, North Kent Rail Youth Group, and also worked do a lot on the buses as well.
Yeah, welcome, Jackie. Yep. Welcome. Yep. Anybody else want to make themselves known? Yep.
Milton Regis Society.
Milton Regis Society, thank you very much. Yes, please go ahead. Okay. Okay, yeah, and Paul Best online.
Hello, yeah, Paul Best from the Sittingbourne and Kemsley Light Railway.
Welcome, Paul. Thank you very much for joining us. People who can hear Sittingbourne and Kemsley Light Railway. Okay, just to do a bit of housekeeping as well, please be aware that in the event of an emergency, people will be asked to leave the building quickly without collecting any of your possessions, using the doors designated as fire escapes. My nearest one's here and also at the back there. Please note that we're not scheduled a fire alarm test, so if it does sound, please do exit the building and await any instructions before re-entering the building. Is anybody here in require of assistance if we do have to evacuate? All good? Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies, please?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Simon Clark, and we also have apologies from Stagecoach. They only this afternoon they advised that they couldn't come along.
Yeah,
Bring apologies from Councillor Charlie Miller.
okay, thank you. Agenda item 3, for members, are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Winkles.
I'm on pecuniary interest as a member of the Milton Regis Society, and on pecuniary interest as I'm a trustee of the.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, Councillor Mitchell. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 4, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of June 2025, minute numbers 97 to 107. Are members happy with these as a correct record? Yeah. Agenda item 5, public transport issues in Sittingbourne. So this is something that I know has come up at a few Sittingbourne Area Committee meetings, and people obviously expressed that they would very much welcome representatives from local bus companies and South Eastern coming along to the meeting. When we had KCC, a previous area committee, talking about public transport plan for the area, there was quite a lot of discussion from residents and members alike about how we make sure that public transport options are more accessible to people and that they are more integrated so that it's of greater use to people in the town. So I'm going to invite each of the representatives to give an update on their services in the Sittingbourne area, and then I will obviously open up to people for questions. We did have some questions that had been arising from previous meetings that had been put into people, the representatives from these organisations in advance. But I believe, who are we starting with first? We'll start with Roland first.
Presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there's a short presentation just pop up.
I'll try and make it short. Yeah, happy to be.
There we go.
And can I just ask who came to you from KCC? Do you remember?
We had an officer some time ago, it was when we were meeting here, wasn't it, about their public transport plan. I can't remember exactly when that was, but yeah.
Okay.
It was just, there was public consultation at the time, so people were feeding in from this meeting and there was a few questions that threw up there, which we just thought would be great to cover off at a future meeting.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to come along to these meetings. Can you all hear me okay? It's a little bit, I'm sort of looking at the screen and trying to go that way at the same time, but I'll do my best anyway. Okay, thanks, Kevin. So just a little bit of an overview about who we are. I'll try not to read the slides to you, but we've been around for a long time. Top right there, gentleman in the white coat, that's my grandfather, Harry Eglinton, in the 1930s, I think. And that's me earlier this year when I was raising money for the Scout Association when I ran the London Marathon. We're a medium-sized employer in the area. We are members of a number of trade associations in our industry that I'm quite involved in, and it does give quite a lot of insight into some of the things that go on at higher levels. So CPT, Album, you see there, they both have regular meetings with the Department for Transport at national level, the ministers, and you know, some really good connections there. So we do our best to sort of stay on top of what's not only what's going on, but what's likely to be happening. And some things about what we do there, we do a wide range of activities, not just local buses and coach hire. We do home to school work as well. I love the stats at the bottom. We carry 1.64 million people per year, and our fleet went 37 times around the world. We're moving back twice in 1 year. So yeah, we do a fair amount of work. Okay, onto local buses, you can see our network there. You've got the services around the town centre of Sittingbourne there. You've got the 334 service that goes over to the island and back between Sittingbourne. You've got services there on the island, and you've got the 326, 327 service, which goes all the way through to Chatham, which I'll mention a little bit later. We've taken over a lot of those services since Arriva withdrew, mainly in 2021, and that was a bit of a tough job picking up from them. We work closely, we work together with the bigger operators who are owned by multinationals, so Stagecoach, Arriva. They've got working relationships with them, but obviously we work in different ways. So when we took over these routes, we were sort of able to put a bit more of a local insight into them, and a little bit more of a local identity as well. So these are some of the things we do. We've got app-based ticketing. We're constantly investing in ultra-low emission vehicles, and we're rolling out Wi-Fi across our network. Now, this is the biggest single issue we've got, and 2 words that everybody knows: Grover's Junction. it's the bane of our lives, roadworks, these major schemes. I mean, we've got 3 major schemes happening by design in and around Sittingbourne at once. So we've got Key Street, we've got Gravehurst, we've had Stockbury, and we've also, believe it or not, we're impacted by the Bluebell Hill development, which has been particularly difficult in the last 2 weeks. Why would Bluebell Hill impact buses in Sittingbourne? Well, as I showed you, that route that runs to Sittingbourne and Chatham and back, we're seeing a lot more traffic on the A2 in the Medway towns, with people trying to get away from those delays on Bluebell Hill. Buses are coming back late from the Medway towns, and that causes all sorts of knock-on impacts that nobody really thought about. Anytime the A2 is closed or the M2 is closed, it's a major problem for us. It's hard trying to explain to somebody who's standing in Merstham wanting to know why their bus hasn't turned up. But we've got big issues because of something going on the A2 in Newington, for example, which could cause havoc. And they're looking around and their bus stop and they're saying, there's no traffic here. And that's one thing that we try and, we have to deal with, and we try and communicate as best we can. But it's it's a constantly moving feast. And then you've got on top of that the ad hoc roadworks that can spring up at any time. There's something like 60 different utilities that can dig up the road at any notice, without any notice, under emergency powers. This is a big issue around the country, really, because sometimes emergency powers are genuine, and sometimes maybe they're taking advantage of those powers. So that can be anything from one house has lost its Wi-Fi to a major gas leak and something could blow up. But the first we know about it is when the driver's on the phone saying, I can't get down this road. So, we do a lot of work with Kent Street Works, trying to mitigate some of the impacts, and as much as we do encounter these delays, the ones you don't see are the ones we've helped to sort of avoid or get changed to nighttime closures only, that kind of thing. So, it is a constant battle. The A2 in Sittingbourne has been identified as an air quality management area in Kent. It's number 2 on the list. The first is Stone Street in Maidstone. So Kent are looking at different initiatives around what they can do to mitigate that. And funding for buses is constantly under threat. We've got a relatively new administration in Kent. We've also got we've had a 3-year settlement announced from central government for transport, but the guidance actually hasn't been announced. That was announced in May. Still hasn't been announced how they can spend that money. So we're in a bit of a guessing game. We've been on this very sort of short term. Hard to do any long-term planning when funding's announced sort of a little bit at a time. And again, that's a constant battle trying to guess what's going to happen there. Okay, so buses in Kent, 97% of the buses you see are provided commercially at the operator's risk. That is skewed by a lot of the big urban centres, South East London, Canterbury, Maidstone, for example. In a sort of a semi-rural environment like Sittingbourne, it's actually a lot less than that. But there's a chunk of Kent fund out of their own budgets, and that's when they tenders for bus operators come in, and they're the areas that we've seen cut over the last few years. We've also incurred rapidly increasing costs, as you can appreciate, labour and insurances and things like that. And that's when you start to see gaps in the market where there's a lack of funding to fill in for where services used to be, or where they should be. We're dependent on that sort of relationship with Kent, and they're my biggest customer, and we spend a lot of time working with them. We do actually have quite a good relationship with them, even though there's lots of challenges there. But Kent have been given additional funds by government which they've had to spend just to stand still, just to keep the existing level of services going. And they really love to be putting in new stuff and trying different things and pilot schemes. They've really had to put all that money in to just keep in hold of what they've already got. Thank you. Okay, a little bit more about buses in the national context. They are the most popular form of public transport. As you can see, they carry 10.2 million pounds of people a day, which is more than rail. Some people are surprised by that. Rail gets a massive amount of money compared to bus, but we carry more people. And actually, for what they spend, we return 11.3 billion pounds to the Treasury every year, relative to the amount of support that we get. We need that long-term settlement. We need that long-term guidance about how money can be spent to improve buses before we can sort of put any firm plans in place. Better Buses Bill, that's working through government at the moment. I don't think it's going to happen in Kent, judging by what I'm told, but this gives local authorities the power to take over their bus networks and brand it as their own, and really that shifts the revenue risk back to them. Manchester is the biggest example where they painted all the buses yellow, put them under sort of the same banner there. One of the lessons from that process was a lot of smaller operators, my sort of size, were squeezed out of the process because they'd come out with these big, thick tender documents that you've got to fill in, and somebody like a Stagecoach or an Arena, they had a whole team of people in the Midlands who sit there and churn through all this stuff. In our business, it's me. And I've got a job to do the other things in the business. So, that gets a little bit more complicated. Irrespective of who owns the buses, what colour they are, or what tender process has been used to provide them, you still need the congestion issues solving, you still need those roadworks issues solving, because all you end up with sometimes is different colour buses sat in the same roadworks. Thank you. I've spoken a little bit about our air quality management issues in Kent, and there's some facts there about the zero emission challenges, and it's perception that big vehicles provide the most pollution. Actually, we take cars off the road and help reduce emissions. I'm conscious I'm going over my time here. That's on the right there. So I know, Tony, you'll recognise that. We had that on online. It's an electric bus. One of the providers, one of the manufacturers said, "Here, try this for a week," and it was really good. However, the cost of a standard diesel bus is £190,000. That one was 300,000, and I have to pay £20,000 for a charger for it. And there's some infrastructure challenges there. We need big access to the grid. That one bus used all of our grid capacity overnight. So we need heavy cables running somewhere. But with all these challenges around short-term funding, how do we invest long-term in an asset like that at that kind of money? So we really need that sort of joined up view from Kent and from central government and us as a provider. Okay, a fully loaded bus can take 75 cars off the road. Please do bear that in mind, because as much as it's painful sometimes being stuck behind a bus, even more painful being stuck behind 75 cars. And we do our part in reducing traffic. And if everyone took one more bus journey per month, CO2 would be reduced by 2 million tonnes a year. Again, cars off the road, buses are less fumes. Okay. And for every £1 of government spend on buses and priority schemes, there's benefits of £4.55 to the wider economy. And I think this is a challenge that I'm really trying to get over with stakeholders at local level, national level. If you put money into buses, it comes back in other ways through local economy, through the national economy. Quite often local authorities just look at the cost. And then you get a cycle of budget reductions and buses get cut, and then there's less money coming back. We still need paying to do the job one way or another. That's not money that flows back to us, that comes back through the wider economy. So, yeah, with a bit more investment, we could do an awful lot more. And that, I think, is about the end, and I've waffled on for long enough, but hopefully that gives you a bit of a feel for what's going on in our industry at the moment, locally and nationally.
That's great, thank you very much. What we will do is we will ask South Eastern colleagues to do their presentation, because I know there could be some crossover questions. But obviously, if people have questions just in Roland or for South Eastern, then we'll take those in that way.
Freya, are you going to start off your presentation?
Hi there, it's George here. It's my slides first, so I'll start first and then I'll hand over to Freya if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to introduce myself, my name is George Patterson. I'm the Senior Stakeholder Engagement Manager at South Eastern. I'm going to talk about services in just a moment. What I wanted to initially talk to you about, and those of you who attended our stakeholder forum in the summer will already be aware of this. We are now the first railway network in Britain to integrate. So we have officially integrated with Network Rail. What does that mean? Well, traditionally, the model has been since privatisation in the 1990s. Network Rail maintained the infrastructure. We train operators such as South Eastern would run the passenger services. We are now one organisation, so our managing director is now responsible for both South Eastern and Network Rail. There's a number of benefits to that. It means we've joined together organisationally, digitally, culturally. We're now working close together. It means we can resolve issues quicker. It means we can take joint decisions more smoothly, and it should increase efficiency and help us reduce the amount of taxpayer money that we're spending. Can I just ask you to click on the slide? There should be a little box come up.
I've clicked and some text has appeared. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. So as you can see, so now we're one integrated organisation. We have joint governance, we have joint business reviews, and we have joint profit and loss. It's really essential that we do this, especially when it comes to things like performance. You know, making sure your train on time and making sure it runs and isn't cancelled is probably one of the highest priorities for our customers on the railway. And when it comes to stuff like performance, there's a myriad of factors that can cause late running trains and cancellations. And some of them relate to the infrastructure, which is related to Network Rail. Some of them relate to the train operator, which is South Eastern. But now we're joined together. It means that we can look at those problems together instead of bouncing back between one organisation, and ensure that we can improve performance and reduce cancellations. So it has a lot of benefits. And as I said, we are the first network in Britain to do this, and this is a milestone on the way to Great British Railways, which is due to be set up and running by the end of this decade. So yeah, we're leading the way in this integration. Can I go to the next slide, please? So this is part of our mission statement. So we want to deliver better performance for customers at a lower subsidy. And as part of that, we want to grow passengers. Freight is also very important. It's very important that we, as the previous speaker was mentioning, public transport, it takes a lot of vehicles off the road. One freight train can actually take 20 lorries off the road. So it's very, very important we grow both passengers and freight. We want to make our journeys more accessible. We want to be more coordinated and more responsive with our investment, and we want to make it a safer and more inclusive experience for everyone who uses the railway. And as part of this, we want to operate in a purposeful way. We want to make sure that there's a social purpose to what we're doing, and that we're delivering a social value in the work that we're undertaking. Can I go to my final slide, and then I'll hand over to Freya. So just quickly, so I know there was interest in service changes. So our next timetable change is in December. There will be some additional high-speed services between St Pancras and Faversham, which will mean additional services at Sittingbourne. So for those constituents of yours who use the high-speed services at Sittingbourne, it is good news. There will also be some additional services going up to Dartford. So for anybody who connects onto services at Dartford, that's also good news. And we'll also be introducing more of our Class 377 Electrostar trainers. So we're in the process of modernising our train fleet. As I've put at the bottom, there are more changes to come in May 2026, and we are now starting to look at December 2026. So we are already looking at the next 2 rounds of timetable changes. I will now pass over to Freya and let her do her section.
Thanks, George. Hi, everyone. I'm Freya Alder. I'm the Integrated Travel Manager at South Eastern. So my role is all about trying to integrate better with other modes of transport to make it easier for people to get to and from our stations. And it's a relatively new role, both for me and for South Eastern. I joined at the end of last year. So I've spent I spent the first few months putting together our new integrated travel strategy, and I just wanted to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of that today, although you can find a more full version on our website if you'd like to find out more about this. But so I don't need to tell all of you this, but we do know that the quality of people's first and last mile journey, so how they're getting to and from the station, has a really big impact on their entire journey experience. So what you can see on the left of that slide is from some research we did a couple of years ago, looking at the challenges people face when leaving stations. And as you can see, we've got traffic, cost of public transport, but also just a lack of transport options, which I think is a really, really key issue. So my role is really about tackling that. So at the heart of our integrated travel strategy, we have a vision and a mission statement. So our vision, our very long-term goal, is to see our railway at the heart of an integrated transport system that supports the communities we serve socially, economically, and environmentally. And then our mission is kind of how we're going to work towards that on a daily basis. And it's kind of what I'm working towards every day, which is to create seamless door-to-door journeys for everyone by better integrating rail with active, shared, and public transport. Can I go to the next slide, please? So obviously that vision and that mission, they are very broad and they are quite long term, as I said. So I wanted to narrow it down a little bit more to 2 strategic objectives, and everything that I'm working on in my role is driving to one or both of these objectives. So first of all, we have encouraging modal shift. And the hope here is that by making that first and last mile journey easier for people, and by offering more appealing transport options, we can not only encourage people to choose the train over the car for the majority of their journey, but also encourage them to choose a sustainable mode of transport for that journey of getting to and from the station. And then the second objective is improving access to rail. So the kind of easy way to think about this is, if the first one's looking at environmental sustainability, then this one's really focusing on that social sustainability. And I could talk a lot about this one, and there is a lot more detail on our website in the strategy itself. But fundamentally, this is about making it easy for absolutely everyone to reach our stations without the need for a car. So there are lots of ways that we could achieve these 2 objectives, of course, and I've put at the bottom there, I won't go through all of them, but our 7 priority areas that we'll be focusing on. And so just to give you a quick sense, the first few often relate to kind of physical improvements at stations. So things like improved bus interchanges, improved waiting areas, improved cycle storage. Then there are things around kind of customer information and marketing that we can do to encourage that modal shift. And then finally, the slightly more boring ones for everyone else at the bottom there is about kind of developing that policy and that research that sits behind all of those other projects. Could we go to the next slide, please? So how does this all apply to Sittingbourne? Well, I'm kind of working on a number of different pilot projects this year. As I say, this is all quite new to South Eastern, so we're trying various things out. And one of those projects is station travel plans. So these are kind of strategic studies that assess how well stations are connecting people to other modes of transport, but also to kind of the key destinations in those areas. And the outcome of those studies will be a very detailed report that reviews current provision and then sets out some really clear recommendations for what we could do to improve. And then we will use those recommendations to create a fairly long-term plan for the station. And the good news is that Sittingbourne and also Sheerness are included. Oh, sorry, that should say Sittingbourne and Sheerness, not Swale, are included in the 19 stations that we've selected for this trial. So we will have a station travel plan for Sittingbourne and Sheerness, and we will be using that plan to create hopefully some really impactful improvements over the next few years. And the kind of point I wanted to end on is that really to make these station travel plans a success, we need local input, and we need a lot of local input. So we will be carrying out passenger surveys at each station that's involved in this project. And we will also be reaching out directly to some kind of council members. So maybe that will be you. And please let me know if you'd like that to be you. But if you have any specific suggestions at all about how we can improve that integration at Sittingbourne or Sheerness, then please do email me. That's my email there. I would love you to get involved in this project and really make it a success. Thank you very much. That's everything from me.
Thank you very much, Freya. I will open up to questions. If people can just make sure that the questions are brief and direct questions. So rather that than long statements, if possible, so that we can get round as many questions as possible. I'll take a couple of questions. If you could indicate whether it's just for Roland, whether it's just for South East, whether it's for both, or whether it's something you want us to take away to Stagecoach, as it can be here, then please just let us know. So I've got indication from Councillor Winklis, and then I'll come to you.
Well, just about in case.
Yep.
What we kick on. Right, first of all, to the on the railway, are there any plans to increase the off-peak service between Sheerness and Sittingbourne during the day, which at the moment is 1 hour outside the peak times? It used to be half an hour. It got knocked back up to COVID when the passenger number dropped.
You've got a good bus service. That's the thing.
And so any questions on that? And also on the freight side of things, as I think I've said before at these meetings, there was a connected freight rail head out Rhythm, which used to be heavily used. It links into Rhythm Port. Are there any plans to move more freight on rail from Rhythm, which is connected up when the system was re-signalled about 10 years ago? That's not
So that was rail. You didn't have any bus questions, huh?
the bus question. Yeah, I must admit I did enjoy that trip on the bus. It was very occasional. It's just that's a shame that, as you explained on the day, you know, we haven't got the capital investment possibly to actually buy these vehicles. I was amazed how much it cost.
What was the question, Tony?
Sorry.
The question.
Well, the question is then, I've got a direct question.
Yeah.
Is through Milton Regis, something I think I've got concerns about the double deckers going through the mill. And some of us looking at 347 where actually causing vibrations and properties.
Okay, thank you. Was there a question? Does someone indicate on this side? Yep. Councillor Follow.
I've got a few questions that I'd like to leave with you, if possible, at the end, because I know I'm a bit short on time. But a question that was asked when this was all brought up was residents would really like a service that they can interchange between the buses and the train system. Is that a possibility at all?
Okay, if we take those, and then some people have indicated on this side, so we'll take those ones first. If we could ask Freya and George to take the questions from these first questions, and then we'll come to you.
Yeah, I can answer the one about services. So yeah, we do have growth on our network. We see about 8% growth on our network. On this line, it's not significant. There is growth, but it's not significant yet to justify an additional service. In this present climate, we have very, very strong mandate from the DfT that we need to ensure that the services we're operating are as cost efficient as possible. And when we propose a new service, one of the things the Department for Transport will look at is a very strong business case, because you know, public money is tight, and we operate a taxpayer subsidy. So I'm not saying no in the future, but we need to see growth. We need to see more people using the current service, and then it will be something we would look at.
Just quickly on that, because that route goes through my ward in Kemsley, the Sheerness line. There are no ticket barriers at Sheerness on Sea Station. So how are you calculating the revenue to justify the business case? Because when there are revenue inspectors on that line, you get a hell of a lot come in, because people know that they can get out at Kemsley, or they'll jump the barriers at Sittingbourne. There's no need to present a ticket at Sheerness at all.
Yeah, and so the way we measure passenger numbers is there's 3 methods. One of them is through the gate lines. The other 2 is we have weighing equipment on the train, so we actually weigh the trains at each station, and we take an average. And it's actually fairly accurate, and we do manual counts as well. In terms of gate line, fare evasion has become more of a problem, especially since COVID. There's a lot of stations now where we'd like to have gate lines. It does, again, it involves a high amount of capital investment. We have a number of stations that we are hoping to get gate lines on, busier stations. And once we've got gate lines on those, we will go down the list and try and get investment for more. We would like all our stations to be gated, ideally, but because of the costs, it's unfortunately not possible at this time.
Freya, were there any questions that you could take?
Yes, yeah, I'm happy to answer that one about bus and rail integration. So I think it's a really good point, and it's absolutely a key part of that strategy that I was talking about. We all know how frustrating it is to get off a train and to have just missed the bus, or vice versa. So it's always something we're looking at improving. The kind of flexibility of train timetables is relatively limited, if I'm honest. So our high-speed services are timed around Eurostar services. Our mainline services are then timed around high speed, and so on and so on. We have interactions with GTR services. So the issue really is, if you change something at one station, you then put it out of sync somewhere else often, and there is that kind of knock-on effect. When you add in things like our seasonal timetable changes, so we've got an autumn timetable coming up, that makes it even more difficult. So the thing that I'm really keen to focus on is to make sure that we're building really good relationships with the bus operators in the area and Roland, so that we can notify bus operators of when those changes are happening, discuss the issues where there are clearly things that are out of sync, and tackle them where we can. But there are kind of fundamental challenges with how our timetables are set up.
And just before I come to Roland, there was a point about Ridham Dock and freight from that interchange. Is somebody able to answer that, or is that something you can come back to us about?
It would be something we'd need to speak to the freight operators about.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. Roland.
Yeah, so I'll try and remember the question.
Yeah, there's the bit about Milton double-decker buses, and also we'd love to get your view on the integration, because it's great to hear about the mission statement from South Eastern, but I'm interested to know actually whether they've even approached you as a bus operator in the area, okay, to fulfil their mission statement, or if hopefully it'll be something that can be sorted.
Okay, no is a direct answer to that. However, we are part of a scheme called Plus Bus, which when you buy your rail ticket, your Plus Bus add-on, which means you can use your bus ticket, travel on the bus network. Little bit of a question mark around that in this area, whether it's still active or not, because I really used to administer it, but we're happy to entertain that, and we are signatories to that scheme. I'm a little bit vague on that, if I'm honest. I have to go away and find out about that. In terms of operating big buses during the day. Unfortunately, we get this, why don't we operate small buses when there's quiet times? It's always going to be governed by how many people want to use the bus at the busiest time, which in this area, like most, is between sort of 8 o'clock and 3:30 in the afternoon when you've got the schools traffic. So short of having 2 different vehicles that I can send out at 2 different times a day, we're going to keep operating big buses during the middle part of the day where we can.
Okay, thanks for that. I've got a question here from Councillor Gibson, then the gentleman next to him.
Thank you. So first of all, the first bit's just a very, very quick statement. I absolutely welcome integration rather than degradation, which is what we seem to have had over the recent times, the last few years in service. What I would say is in terms of your revenue protection. So if I wish to be unscrupulous, I could either just walk up to Kemsley and hop on the train there with no barriers, hop off at Sheerness and get a free ride there and back. And so I wonder what you've got, your plans are for revenue protection and whether you really are doing your best there that you possibly can for the organisation, because of course that brings the revenue for you. And talking about growing your business and actually looking to get more passengers onto the trains, and you're talking about surveying your passengers. What about those that aren't yet passengers that may well be if you to actually survey them too, so much wider?
Yeah, and gentleman next to you.
Thank you so much. Looking at the buses, now I understand that it's on parts of Sittingbourne, Kempsey, there's no bus at the 16th, and there are more people moving into Sittingbourne. So what are the plans you have for, extension of the bus hours? And also for the trains as well. I understand that several years ago, in the morning peak, there used to be train from Sheffield to London. I live in Kempsey, and it's really challenging going to Sittingbourne to connect. At night time, when I'm coming back, even Sittingbourne areas are open. There's nothing in Kempsey. So there's no way, I know the Southeast said there is a way when you run trains to know the number of people that is quite accurate. I want to dispute that because I'm a service controller which travel from London. So it's never accurate. No. So if this is being looked at, of course, revenue is being looked at as well, then there is this rationale to extend service half hour, because at times when that train from Sheffield is late, I can connect to the train at Sittingbourne and I work at capacity. And the cost as well, will there be statistics looking at the cost effect of tickets, particularly during the peak. If I have a network rail card, it's not valid until 10 a.m. So I work in London, I live here, it's a lot to even spend on transportation. So are you looking at that to ease our life here? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So just as we come to those two, I've got a couple of people noted, quickly noted, Jack. So we will come to South East on those. Just to add to that then, there's been some discussion obviously in Scotland where they've removed peak services. I wouldn't suggest that obviously services going to London, which obviously still take quite a lot of commuter traffic, would necessarily do away with that. But other people have expressed about changing, for example, when you might be able to use rail cards, because the traditional peak has changed since the pandemic and people have blended working arrangements. You can get on trains at 9:40 or 10:10 on the high speed service and it's quite busy. And actually some of the earlier services, if you go to the platform, it's dead at Sittingbourne, where once upon a time it would have been a crowd of commuters. So that follows on from that point there. And also there are concerns, the point about the service direct from Sheerness into London has been in the news again recently. Some people have been talking about that. And also there are issues as well at Sittingbourne station with the lifts often being out of action, which poses accessibility issues. And also some people have spoken about whether a second entrance and exit, which comes out the other side of the railway line, might also make that a better experience for people using it. So if we could take those questions from our South Eastern colleagues, please.
Yeah, I'll try and remember everything that was asked. So in terms of fares, so Yeah, yeah, you're right, and I'm one of those people who gets the slightly later train because I have to get the London Underground and it's very busy at the peak hours. We actually call that period the shoulder peak. Half the fares we sell are regulated by the government, so we can't influence that. What we can do is look at that off-peak pricing, and it has been something we've looked at. We have tried to give more discounted options via advance fares by strategically placing them on quieter services where we're carrying around empty space, so it makes sense for us to offer cheaper fares. When you're getting onto high speed and premium services like that, when it is busy, unfortunately, it's we are operating at significant with a significant subsidy, and we have to generate revenue to cover that. And there is a very strong focus from government, and there will be across all the train operators which fall under their remit, that we reduce that subsidy as best we can due to the state of public finances. I heard a question about gate line and people just fare evasion. As I said in the previous question, it is a problem. It's become more of a problem. We have our revenue enforcement officers, our revenue protection officers. We have more CCTV at our stations. We have a tripartite agreement with the British Transport Police. We're doing everything we can to crack down on it. Unfortunately, it has become more of a social issue more generally with crime. Not only fare evasion, we've seen a spike in antisocial behaviour since the pandemic, which is why all our staff have body-worn cameras. But it is difficult, especially at those quieter stations. And our quietest station on the network is on the Sheppey branch line. It is quiet. It is harder to make sure that we're catching every single fare evader. And again, we have to make that. We have to allocate our revenue enforcement teams in the most prolific locations where they're going to deter or catch the most fare evasion. Sorry, can you remind me of the other questions?
The other sort of questions were around the direct service from Sheerness to London, and also around some of the accessibility issues at Sittingbourne Station, so with regular lift outages, and also whether there could be the option of another entrance and exit point the other side of the railway line.
Yeah, so I'm happy to take that last point away. With regards to the lifts, we have raised that with the station team, so I'm waiting to hear back from that. On the direct service, look, we know that there was a direct service before the pandemic, and I completely appreciate the desire from residents in the area for that service. Most people just want to stay on the same train; they don't want to have to change. I feel the same. It's not, again, it's because of the passenger usage. It's not something we will implement in the short term. It will probably be something we will look at in the longer term. Our train planners are very much aware that is a desire of users and stakeholders in this area. So we do know that people in this area want it, and hopefully we see a bit more growth, and then the business case looks a lot more viable, and it might be something we can introduce.
Did that cover all the points, sorry? Yeah.
You said a little bit about the survey bit as well.
Oh yeah, the other bit was about
Yeah.
surveying people who aren't already passengers on the rail network.
Yeah, it is. That's a very good point. Obviously, for these station travel plans in particular, it is much easier for us to gather those views from people who are in the station. So what will be, hopefully you'll see these around, but there will be posters that people can scan a QR code and fill out the survey. And there will also be people physically there taking survey responses. So our hope is that those surveyors can wander a little bit further than the station boundary, but completely appreciate it's going to be massively swayed towards passengers themselves. I think this is where stakeholder input becomes really, really crucial, which is why we're going to be inviting councillors, people from community rail organisations, those sorts of groups, to the station audits we're doing. So again, let me know if you'd like to be involved with those. So these will be station audits that walk around the station for a few hours, looking at every element and how we could improve it, including things like lifts that were mentioned, including the potential of second entrances, and gathering all of that local knowledge together to put together a really comprehensive plan. there are always kind of wider pieces of research that are going on to get those lapsed passenger views. It's just a challenging one to integrate into this specific piece of work.
Thank you very much. I think next we had a question.
Just had a question I didn't get to answer.
Oh, right, sorry, yes, please.
All buses in the evening.
Yes, that's right.
That's a very common request. I hear that across different parts of Kent. Unfortunately, we see a tail off sort of after 5 o'clock. It's not something that we can do commercially at our own back. It does need an element of funding there. I accept the need. Someone's got to pay for it. The good news is that there's discussions with a lot of housing developers about how they can contribute money to the local bus network, and that is quite a common thing. Unfortunately, that is a very, very slow process, getting those developments through planning and having to travel, having something early on. So there might be something to come from some of the local schemes, but yeah, it's very slow and painful.
How much of that is, because people have raised before, and so obviously it'd be great to get your view on how much of that is sort of chicken and egg, where actually to try and get that sort of shift in people's reliance on their car, particularly given all the traffic misery that people are experiencing, that you flagged in your presentation as well, to try and get them even just a little bit later into the evening. I think one of the points raised at a previous meeting was how there's low coverage by supermarkets. So, for example, someone hopping on the bus in the evening to go to the supermarket, this wouldn't even be viable on a lot of the current routes anyway. So people doing those sorts of journeys in the evening don't really have an alternative.
Okay, so there's a bit of a building manual common argument there. However you do, whether that's short term, medium term, for it to work in the long term, somebody at the pump prime knows early steps. Yeah, we're a local independent business. There's only so much we can do, and we need third-party contributions, even from employers, from central government, local government, tourism schemes and things like that. And we're no different to any other part of Kent.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Worcester had a point from you.
Thank you. Just because you mentioned it's the Sheffield branch line, I thought it was prevalent to add that you haven't mentioned the REO reports that are generated. You know, the BTP and Southern work on a joint operation, which they have done at Shepley and Sittingbourne within the last month. Those reports will tell you how much fare evasion is happening within those times. And actually, I was present at the Shepley operation at invite from BTP, which I was very lucky to do as town councillor. And absolutely, when I spoke to passengers, mostly women, to be honest with you, they felt exceptionally reassured that those operations were in fact happening. And I would like to challenge a couple of points that you made this evening about CCTV in operations at the station. Often that CCTV isn't in operation, at least at Sheerness, which means the amount of evidence gathering that can happen when things do happen for safety purposes on the line, it isn't reassuring that CCTV doesn't work sometimes. The other real point to make is that as a parent myself, the coach services that operate in this area and the bus services are absolutely seen as a better safeguarded option for children travelling in our local area. And it's disappointing that the train network isn't seen with the same security for those children getting to places of education, which actually hinders our children from exploring more options further afield. And I really ask that if you're going to survey, maybe you could include secondary schools that have a sixth form option, so that actually you can take those passengers that are your future passengers into consideration, and that you add the REO reports that are generated on the backs of BTP operations, so that you can have accurate data. When I was there, I saw 12 people, more people being stopped for fare evasion the entire time on every train that came in and people being stopped for carrying drugs, and the knife arch going on, and the drugstore going on. There is no deterrent on these stations. There are no up-to-date posters that BTP are in operation. We need to do something that absolutely communicates that our line is safe. Fair evasion won't be tolerated,
Okay.
and behaviour will be.
I've got a few other people to bring in, so I think the point's been well made. Thank you very much, Solicitor. We will come to that in a moment with our South Eastern colleagues. There was a gentleman here in the cap. What's your question, please?
One of the local boss. I'm a resident of the Great East Shore community, and I believe there's about maybe over 7,000 residents in there, and we only have one bus stop. And you may know that that bus stop has not been in operation for God knows 5 years now. So there's no way we rely on public transport in that community. And I believe there's a road, Great East Way, Great East Way that we should all grow, which has been important enough in readiness for the bus service to resume. We've been told that for the last 3, 4, 5 years. It's never happened. And my point is, when is the bus service, if it's ever going to return to Great East Store, when is that going to happen? Because we also want to be part of the statistic, 1.64 million people lines of the service. We're not part of that. And none of the school kids in Great East Store can rely on public transport to get out of the community into their local schools. We don't want to be the little boy at the back of the room and nobody wants to hold on and nobody will hold there. But my question is, are we ever going to get the bus service return back to Great East Store? And where is that going to be?
Yeah, and just quickly, if there's a very quick point, please, Jackie, because then I've got 3 more people after you.
Yeah, thanks. I've got good news, bad news for you. First of all, on the new timetable which has been put on, some put at the hub, it's actually, there's mistakes on it. It says the 1500 GNS is school holidays only. It's not, it's a 351. And it's when it's school days. And that is a very, very useful service. I used it, I couldn't believe how brilliant it was.
I'm making a note of that. However, you can still use it.
Yeah. And you've got some really great drivers. There's a couple, about 3 that I.
Can we keep?
Yeah, I'm trying to, yeah. There's 3 that are basically, I need to be checked. I can speak to you afterwards if you want about it, I'll meet with you later. And also, 11:15 is smart today. Good driver, but he didn't have a ticket machine on the bus.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if there's any follow-up questions, you're better off feeding them through.
Yeah, we'll get
Yeah,
any specific ones that we'll get that over. I think there is a valid point about the bus hub information, because I think one of the issues is about live information as well, and whether that can be easier for people at the bus hub. That's something that's come up. Harry, was there something you just wanted to quickly add on to the? Okay, right, okay. All right, we'll come to you actually on the Great Eastern question now then, but first then we'll come over to South Eastern about the GNS line.
Yeah, so we inherited that route that only goes as far as Merston now in 2023. We were told it's coming. I'm really, really frustrated. It's been an absolute mess. Reinstall that bus gate. The issue is the piece of road that links the two up. It's not adopted highway, it still ain't on the developer. The developer is actually changed hands, who actually is responsible for that. They need to do remedial works for it to be in a position where Kent can adopt it, say it's our highway, and then they can put cameras on it and enforce it, stop the people cutting through.
So I think that's where Councillor Pollard's good news comes in about the adoption of the roads.
Got an update on this at 4 o'clock this afternoon, so July 9th, I was able to announce that bus lane is going to open back up. HC are adopting it. before they adopt it, what needs to be done to bring it up to standard, the management company that owns it have kind of been dragging their feet a little bit. They said that they want that to be prioritised now, to be done as soon as possible, because they have funding to put in the ANPR cameras and then get the bus lane sorted. So if only can my card at the end of this, I'll keep you updated if you want to send me any questions.
Yeah.
I'll be only I got myself to say, are we going to pay more bus stops or if we end up having.
Let's
Let's go one step at a time.
There are technically a couple of bus stops on the estate, but obviously and this was part of the issue, is there's loads of stuff around things on that estate not being adopted. So when there was like 23 streetlights not in operation, it took a lot of work across 2 different developers to get them to come out and fix it, which ultimately, I can only imagine the headache Councillor Pollard has had with trying to get answers from them about this. So I know that was part of the missing point. And the bit about ANPR is obviously going to be very welcome, because that's the key deterrent to the issue that the bus drivers had, which was drivers going in while the bus was trying to come out. So that is the missing piece of the puzzle, hopefully, on that one. So that is good news. Just quickly about the bus sub live information.
Yeah, so again, I'm going to push this one back to Ken. They've identified the bus hub and the place where they want to put screens in with real-time information. They've had problems with suppliers and local tower suppliers and everything else. It is something that is crawling along. They want to do, they've got funding for it, they're prepared to do it.
Okay.
It just needs us.
We've got 3 county councillors with us, so hopefully they will get that pushed along for us this evening, hopefully, anyway.
But you can track buses on our route.
Yes, I know, that's always probably not necessarily good for some of the users that don't have smartphones or, like me, have a poor phone network around the town, so that also doesn't help. Coming then to our southeastern colleagues, which was the bit about the Sheerness line and the readouts from the British Transport Police operations there, and issues with CCTV, and also surveying older school children to get their ideas about what would make them use the train line.
Yeah, I mean, the situation that was described, it sounds horrible. So I do empathise with that, and look, I think to get some more detailed understanding, I'd like to speak to our revenue and crime team and see what their assessment is, what reports they've had from the Transport Police, and find out a bit more about what's happening.
Okay, and looking into the CCTV at the station as well, hopefully.
Yeah, that'll be part of it.
Great. And Freya, about surveying older school children.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, you're absolutely right. They are the future passengers, if not already, and their views are really, really important. So to clarify this, the scope of the surveys is specifically about how people are getting to and from the station and how we could improve that journey. So we will be surveying people who are at the station, as I said. The posters will be there to hopefully open up that survey to as many people as possible, which will hopefully include some of those groups. I can definitely speak to our team that are doing the surveys to see if they can broaden that any further. I don't know off the top of my head.
I think that would be welcome on the island, because obviously you've got a lot of secondary school pupils that do have to travel to Sittingbourne for schooling, and as Councillor Worcester said, you could be missing out on people doing that for whatever reason, that they do not feel safe or able to use the rail line. I've got 4 more people noted down here. Chris Palmer.
So it's the applicable proposals for the improvements and ambitions of like get better, but I have not heard anything for a problem that's been around for decades, and that is people with disabilities. And where I live, if I want to go, if you're in a wheelchair and you want to go shopping in Raynham, that's fine. If you want to come back to Newton, you then have to go Sittingbourne, hopefully the lifts are working, so you can cross to another platform to come back to Newton, and vice versa. And I know Newton's not the only rural train station that has those problems as well, but it's very difficult to go anywhere by train. If
Yeah.
you're new to them, you've got a disability of some sort.
Yeah, so that's a question about some of our smaller stations and accessibility options at those. Mark last.
Thanks, Chair. Really, it's good to hear tonight the words integrated transport. It's something that we need in Swale. We need to be able to know where to go and what we're doing. The thing that worries me is it's very easy to do that north, east, west, going to London, going down to the coast. But what's happening north south? It's very difficult for people on the island to get to Maidstone. It's difficult for people in Sittingbourne to get to Maidstone. And we are so dependent on the M3. If a river was to pull it, what would happen to our residents? So I think when we're looking at an integrated transport system, we need to think out the box. We need to look not the what currently exists works. We may need to put other things in place.
Yeah, okay, so there's a bit for both of you here about how we improve the north-south transport options when we're looking to integrate those. So if we can just take those ones quickly, we'll start with accessibility investments at some of the smaller stations on the southeastern network.
Yeah, so it's something we're trying to make as many stations as possible accessible. Again, I don't want to keep sounding like a broken record. Big accessible improvements are costly, but there are smaller things we can do, like tactile paving and ramps. It really depends. When it comes to accessibility improvements, getting new accessibility improvements are often achieved through something called Access for All, which is a government scheme where stations can bid for accessibility improvements, and we expect that will be open again sometime in the future. So that's the best way of achieving that, and government is more likely to fund accessibility improvements if there's a contribution from a third party. So in the past, we've had developers contribute to accessibility improvements via Section 106. So yeah, it's something to think about.
Okay, and any comment from South Eastern on the north-south travel options in Kent?
It depends on the specific journey being made. We are limited by the railway that exists and the rail infrastructure that exists. Yes, I mean,
I suppose the question was about if we're looking at integrating, obviously looking at how we integrate that journey to and from the station in Sittingbourne is one aspect, but also then it's people continuing their journey if they've got to go, for example, one part on the train to get to another part of Kent by bus, and then obviously you're having to possibly work with different bus companies as well, so it makes that a slightly more complicated matter, and therefore people's travel options, as Councillor Last said, it's quite easy to get up to London and down to the coast, but to get elsewhere in Kent, we're quite limited, and the bus options are limited. We'll come to Roland on that in a moment, but just wondered if there was any further comment you wanted to make around that.
I can come in here as well. I mean, absolutely would echo what George says. There is the limitation of the actual tracks, but as you say, it is about making those connections with bus operators, and they are complex journeys sometimes, and that's where schemes like Plus Bus that Roland mentioned are really key. They simplify the whole experience for people. You know, it's one ticket that you can get for your entire journey. So that is something I'm working with multiple bus operators with across Kent to look at. Currently, there's a kind of national rollout of Plus Bus e-tickets, and we're looking at whether we can integrate that into our app. So it is complex. Those Kent to Kent journeys are not always simple, but looking at those integrated ticketing options, I think, can make it a lot simpler.
That's great. Thank you. Roland, anything you wanted to add on that?
The X3 is actually Stagecoach. We took over the 334 between Sittingbourne and Sheerness in 2023, which is when that service was effectively split. We have a partnership arrangement with Stagecoach where we do joint ticketing with them, and we were actually able to tap into quite a lot of funding to double the bus frequency on our bit. So which is frustrating when you are. Because of that relationship with Kent and the government funding, we've been able to, that's an example where we've been able to do a lot more than what we would have had.
That's great. Okay, the final 2 points then. So Councillor Watson, and then I'll bring in Councillor Martin online. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. So just a couple of comments all around railways. I belong to a group called Long Time with for people who suffer from dementia, so I had a number of queries from them about how we can make stations a bit more dementia friendly, especially around the ticket machines. They always have problems with this as well, but it's an ongoing thing. And the second point was concerning tragic events we've had recently with level crossings. Are you doing something around safety with level crossings? Because I was brought up with what happened in that rain last Thursday. So I also wanted to say thank you to, if you could convey thanks to, about Sittingbourne staff at the station. They were trying to board us all for 8:30 in the morning with people wanting to go to college, etc. And it's going very refreshing, and I appreciate that. But sorry, going back to the dementia thing, I would hope that when you do the survey, you're going to get a broad church of people that are going to get involved in it. And I know that pathfinders, the people who have dementia, would like to get involved in what you want to do the survey.
So I think if we share the slides around with members afterwards as well, there's the email address there. I think connecting pathfinders up with them would be really helpful. And Councillor Martin, who's been waiting patiently online.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the invitation that you sent round to the chairs of the other area committees to take part. It's very much appreciated. Just a couple of very minor points from me. Certainly around the north-south linkage, that is a major issue across the borough and across the county. We saw from South Eastern, I think it was last year in an update email, the potential of a metro-style service between Canterbury and Rochester. And one of the bits of feedback that we gave was, could that not go to Strood? That then connects you to the Medway Valley line. This is the opportunity to do it while Bluebell Hill has got roadworks, and at the same time on the 249 corridor, we've got a year and a half's worth of roadworks on the Barming Road, which causes the tailbacks there as well. It gives a real opportunity. It's also already affecting the X3 service. We're seeing multiple stagecoach services cancelled throughout the day because of how long they're being delayed in that traffic, and therefore drivers reaching the stage where they have to take their breaks. There's no option around that. We all understand that happens, but we do need to look at where are the opportunities in terms of making contact with those that don't already use public transport. What about paying to advertise in some of the car parks? If you're going to have the posters, get the QR codes in the car parks and get people to scan them. That's how we get things moving forward. Certainly we need a better connection between Sheppey, Sittingbourne, Faversham, but moving further south to Maidstone as well, because it's not like it was 10, 15 years ago where everyone commutes to London for work. There's a lot more now that will commute Sittingbourne, Sheppey, Faversham to Maidstone or to Ashford. We need to look at how we get that around the county. And the only other bit from me is looking back to the security and safety on the trains. Certainly 20, 25 years ago, it was conductor guards walking through on every train. That changed when we went into the networker stock and you couldn't get through if it was two joined together. We're heading back with the Electrostars to being able to do a proper walk through. Are we going to have conductor guards back, or are we sticking with customer service managers who have no safety authority on a train?
Okay, thank you very much for that. So, just to recap, there's the main point from Councillor Watson's about level crossing safety. There's been a couple of incidents online, unfortunately, recently around that, and Councillor Watson will connect you with pathfinders so that we can try and make sure the stations are more dementia friendly. And then Councillor Martin's point again about that north-south linkage and the Canterbury-Rochester metro proposal, whether that would be a Canterbury-Strood metro proposal on passenger safety on trains.
I'm happy to talk about. So in terms of level crossing, there was a fatality recently. It's currently under investigation by the Rail Accident Investigation Board. So I won't prejudge anything there and discuss that further. But we expect there is a full investigation to what happened, and we'll learn any lessons that need learning if there are any from our side. In terms of guards on the train, so every train will have an onboard manager. I would need to check about their training. They are trained in safety. I mean, I don't know what the comparison is to the old conductor guards, but and how rolling stock types affect that. I'm happy to have a look at that. But every train service will have a member of staff on it. I'm not sure if Freya wants to add anything to the north-south connections anymore than what
And
we
the metro service proposal that was suggested.
I'm not familiar with that. I was intrigued by that, so I'm not familiar with that proposal. I'm happy to speak to our train planners about that and see if they are familiar, and see if there's demand for that.
Thank you. Just check, Freya, was there anything you wanted to add on any of those?
Just on the
car parks as well.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. So I've just checked the dates for the surveys, and the posters should be up from the 20th of October in the stations. And then, as I say, there'll be actual surveyors there for a few days as well. I am more than happy to share that link with, I don't know who would be best here, but so that the survey can be distributed to other groups that you feel are appropriate.
That's great. Rowan, was there anything further you wanted to add to Councillor Martin about the Maidstone Ashford connections and anything that the bus companies might be able to offer us for those?
Maidstone Ashford, that's very much a Stagecoach question.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That is something that we will put to Stagecoach, who would have liked to have been here this evening, but obviously weren't able to. Thank you very much for everyone's contributions on that, and thank you to Freya and George, and thank you to Roland for joining us for that. Yep.
Sorry, I don't know, just in declaring an interest that my son's a train driver that does train and goes through to Wigan. He's also a bus driver that does that. I suppose to say that. But I don't think it is, but I would like it recorded just.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for that again. Yeah, really appreciate it. Yes, I'm sure there'll be a few bits that we'll make sure is fed back, and we can obviously report back at a later area committee. We're now moving on to agenda item 6, which is the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, LCWIP. Public consultation. We've got the council's active travel coordinator, Michelle Anderson, here, who's going to give us a brief presentation about the LCWIPs and invite people's comments and questions.
Evening everyone, my name is Michelle Anderson and I am the Active Travel Officer for Sittingbourne Council. Here to talk to you about the local walking and cycling infrastructure plan for Swale. I'm going to call it the LC WIP or even the WIP as we move forward, because otherwise it's quite long. So we've just started a public consultation on this on the 1st of September, and it will run through to the 26th of October. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what it is, why we need one, and how you can get involved. So LC WIPs they're very evidence-based, they're very long-term plans for the council to use in order to get routes installed for cycling, walking and wheeling. So it encompasses all of those three things. So there has been an increase in walking and cycling since COVID, and we really want to continue to encourage that. So by improving the infrastructure within our borough, it's going to help everyone, basically. So what we've got to do is that we've got to, when we put an LC WIP together, We've employed some consultants with funding from Active Travel England, and we look at the different routes within the borough and look at how we can improve that infrastructure. But we do have to really abide by some quite strong Active Travel England guidance. Otherwise it won't get through and we won't effectively get any funding for it. Done that already. So what does it actually give us? There's a few things it gives us. Is the benefits of it is that we will have a plan for the future, a plan for cycling routes, walking routes, wheeling routes. We will also be able to bid for funding from Active Travel England is the main one. But actually, whenever any developments go in and the planners are looking at a planning application, we can actually bid for Section 106 money to say, oh, actually, this will go over a future LC route. It's a something we want to install. Can we have £100,000 towards that cycle route, for example? So without an LC whip, we're going to get nothing, no funding. So it's really, really important that as a borough that we really put this in place. So what do they actually provide for us? They really give us some network plans to show what our preferred routes are going to be. So after we've gone off through consultation, we will prioritise those routes, and I'll tell you how we kind of prioritise those in a bit. But this document will also give you a real background report about how we got there. Why is it that we've chosen? I think there's about 40 odd routes on there. But actually, if you look at Swell, you could probably have about 10 million different routes going from X, Y, Z. You know, it could be anywhere. But what we have to do, we base it on population, where we're going to get more bang for our buck, where are the schools, where are the employment sites, where are the train stations, the bus stations, etc. So all of that detail are in the reports, which will give you a good idea, which is why we've chosen the routes we've chosen and we're recommending. Okay, so benefits of active travel, they're pretty no-brainers, to be honest. Health benefits are massive. So if we actually have regular physical activity, I mean, just mortality in itself can be reduced by 30%, but it really affects cancer, depression, dementia, everything that's on there. I'm not going to go through it, I'm sure the slides will be available. But not just that, the environment and air quality would be hugely different. Now, the government set a target to double cycling and walking, and that's what they really want to do. And if we did that, actually, would end up preventing over 8,000 premature deaths. So it's massive. There'd be £567 million saving on air quality issues alone. So I think there was a recent case in the last couple of years where a young girl in London, on her death certificate, is actually air pollution. I mean, what are we doing? We have to have something in place to try and stop this from happening. So if you look at the way the Netherlands are, now they started their infrastructure and cycling and walking 1970s. They're 55 years ahead of us. This is not going to happen overnight, but we've got to start somewhere. So this is really what this is about. It will ease congestion. It's going to affect climate change and improve that. Local business will improve. If I'm going to the shops now and I'm driving, I live in our way, I'm driving to Sittingbourne, I'm going to drive there, I'm going to go in my shop, I'm going to come back out and I'm going to drive home again. That's generally what I do. But actually, if I'm going to make a point of cycling to town, I need to be able to rest. I'm going to go to the cafe, I'm going to have a drink, I'll walk around the shops. Actually, what it will do is that business footfall will increase by up to 40%. So that's going to be massive as well. So that's another huge benefit of active travel. And we've spoken about health already. So as I said, the LC public consultation went live on the 1st of September. Now, actually, Swale doesn't already have an LC whip in place. We have one in Faversham, and Faversham Town Council put that together, and it's been live since 2022. And they're doing a grand job, actually. I think they got just under £1 million from Active Travel England last year or the year before to do quite a lot of extensive work there. So this is what happens when you have a whip in place. You get the funding if it's really beneficial. So I'm leaving Faversham alone. They're doing such a great job. All I've done in this consultation is overlay what Faversham have already agreed. So this consultation really concentrates on Shepping and on Sittingbourne, and they're the key routes for here. So we've looked at a lot of data, evidence, we've had some stakeholder engagement, and what we've done is we've put together a route of real high-level aspirational active travel corridors. And it's funny because what Freya was saying about that integration of that network, rail, and those train journeys and bus journeys, that does also include cycling journeys and walking journeys as well, by the way. So it's to try and make those areas safer. And actually, Councillor Wise and I literally have just put in a light across the network rail bridge in Kemsley, which went to Tuesday. And that is part of this. It's about making that journey from that Kemsley station over into the back end of Leaps Drive safer, because that was so dark and it was actually very unsafe. So that light went up on Tuesday. It's part of that kind of thing that I'd be looking at, and it's the kind of thing that I can probably explain with there. So how can you get involved? Give us your comments online. There is the consultation that is live now. You can read the actual LC whip itself. It's long, it's detailed. I can't apologise for it, because if I left all that stuff out, it wouldn't really make any sense. You need the background to really understand it. But what I did do is that I read it first of all and had to have some matchsticks to keep my eyes open. So I did put together an executive summary, which is much, much shorter. And that will give you that full background as well, but in slightly less detail, but it's probably enough to help you fill out the consultation. Please do have a look at the proposed routes and the maps, and answer the questionnaire. Now, we've had some feedback already on this, so I'll preempt some questions now. If you're doing it online, it is very long, it is very detailed. There's a lot of routes because it's borough-wide. So there are a couple of options you can do here. You can either, please don't try and do it on your phone, it's an absolute nightmare. It's too small, and you're trying to toggle between the maps and the questionnaire, it's quite hard. So if you're going to do it online, if you've got two screens, perfect, it will work. If you don't have two screens and you're doing it online, the way I would suggest is ignore the questionnaire. When you open up the maps, there'll be little pins and it will say give feedback. Click on that and give feedback exactly where you want it. So if you live in Newington and there's a route there that you think is absolutely useless because it's really boggy in the winter months and we put that as a startable route and it just won't work, tell us it. Tell us it on the map, pinpoint it. You can upload a photo if you want. You can do that, and that actually would be really, really beneficial. So we want constructive feedback. If you don't think the route's going to work, tell me it's not going to work. Tell me what could work instead, and even give evidence if you can. Oh yeah, I've just did that comment on maps. I'm ahead of myself. So I've also put paper copies in the three main towns in the borough, is what I'd say. We've got one in Sheerness at the Gateway. I was there today, actually did a little Q&A. I've got one at Faversham Town Council offices. That's the information centre. We've got one at reception in Swell House as well. So there are paper copies there with questionnaires. You can just pop the questionnaires in there's little ballot boxes there. You can pop them in there if you want as well. I've said when it's going to take place. It will close on the 26th of October. So what happens after public consultation? We'll collect all the feedback, we'll have a look at it, we'll look at what can be changed, what can't be changed. We'll prioritise the routes based on feedback, based on the Active Travel England guidance. What is the biggest bang for your buck? Where is the most population? Where is it, most logical to have the routes? And which ones should we start first? And then it goes through to many, many levels of design stage. It's not a very quick fix on there, but it's the stuff that we need. Oh, and I think that's it.
Thank you very much for that. It's a very informative presentation. I hope people found that useful. I really would encourage people to give their comments on the LC whips. I noted, I think there's 3 walking routes and 1 cycling route that goes through Kemsley, so I've taken a look at those. Not a keen cyclist myself, so couldn't really advise on that one. But what was interesting about the walking routes is a lot of them are intuitive. They're routes that lots of people already take. They have a destination in mind, so they serve a purpose. So it really would be great for people to make sure that if they are inquisitive at all about any of this, take a look at them. The maps are really easy to read when you do have it up on the screen. And there's actually lots of things to consider in that you wouldn't necessarily automatically think, actually, this could be an improvement or a barrier to the sorts of routes that you take. So everybody's feedback would be really welcome. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yep, Councillor Wing, please.
Just a quick question. I think I brought this up before, partly, some 2 years ago, possibly. As Councillor Wise said, that there's cycling routes been put through Kemsley. Saffron Way Mills and already has cycle way. It would make sense to me to link the Saffron Way one up to Kemsley. That goes into Church Milton, which I believe is the B2007. And also I'm speaking about my ward in particular, Vicarage Road and North Street would be very handy to have a cycle route put in. I will do the consultation officially, but I just thought I would mention that at this meeting, especially linking up Milton and Kent.
Can I come back on that? So
Yep.
as you can tell, that you could have a million different routes in the road, literally a million different routes. So just because a route that you think makes sense now isn't one of the 40 odd routes there, doesn't mean it won't be in the future. And it doesn't mean it can't be added and we have enough feedback, constructive feedback to say that the need's there.
Yeah, those comments would be really welcome. Just got Councillor Pollard, then I'll come to you, Jackie.
Yeah. So it's brilliant, and I look at it and go, yeah. Then I remember I went to London in the summer holidays, and I hadn't been for a good few years. Did notice there was a reduction in traffic, but as far as bikes, it was a nightmare on a digital scooter. They were everywhere. It's like I needed my own ring mirrors, and that's the picture that's in my head. We are quite close to London, so that's going to be in other people's heads. So how do we, like, what's the selling point from there? Because that's not what.
I don't think quite as populated as London. I'd say that point to start with, but would I rather have cars on the road or cyclists? I mean, Active Travel England guidance clearly states that we should have vehicular traffic, we should have segregated cycle paths, and then we should also have segregated pedestrian paths. That can't always happen because we've got a legacy of narrow roads that are a bit rubbish. So as far as possible, we will try to segregate it to make it as safe as possible. But it isn't just about the paths, it's about having pedestrian priority over traffic. So is it just about having more zebra crossings at the right places? Is it about having, at least one cycle way on one side of the road to give that option? Because you know what, we don't have that many cyclists here, but
you have an option.
If we build it, will they come? Build a dreams? That's how I view it. So, but yeah, I would never be like London. I guess we just don't.
It was literally more around the bicycles.
But they tend to go on the roads a lot, don't they? Yeah.
I think there was also a question about education for cyclists once we finish this work, because you're right, if you're in a mobility scooter, a cyclist has to realise that you also have the right to be there. It's the same in our rural areas where we have horses, and cyclists can spook a horse just as much as a car can. So I think you're absolutely right, and it's something we need to take back on how we do educate cyclists about other road users. And I say that as a cyclist, about other road users as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, even in central London where you've got segregated cycle lanes, a lot of the time the pedestrian seems to come bottom, unfortunately now, because they then go to cross the road and cyclists think that they can just skip red lines and
or they'll actually push you out of the way so that they can get across.
And I think part of the issue in London as well is obviously an explosion of people on e-bikes who are delivery drivers and all of that, and that massively congests things as well. I think totally right that it has to start from somewhere, and I think also preempting where some of these issues could mean that pedestrians might come last after cars and cyclists need flagging up early, actually, because there's some areas, particularly in the centre of town, where that could become an issue. So flagging that through this consultation would be really useful as well. Jackie?
Yeah, along in between Newman Drive and Greenport, there's close. There's a cycle track going part of the way, it just stops.
Yeah.
And no, what they're meant to do, but there's can't get on there. There's no sort of could you look at that one as well?
I'm willing to bet that there was a pot of money at some point some years ago where people said you can have it if you designate something as a cycle lane, and all they did on those bids was split the pavement in half and paint some bits.
Yeah.
And that is not a good way to do this sort of stuff. Like you say, it's disconnected, it's in poor shape.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm willing to bet that that's probably what happened some years ago. And this hopefully avoids that we don't then say, oh, there's a pot of money, let's do something with it. We can say, here's our plan, let's do this. So I think, again, adding your comments to the consultation around that, and maybe it could be, we've come up with a better idea. So if we deliver some of this, can we remove those actually? Because maybe it no longer serves a purpose, and actually making it more user-friendly for pedestrians could fit in better with the LC whip. So really do go and have a look. I really would encourage people to have a look at those maps. There's all sorts of little, which might look like minor improvements, as well as some more substantial improvements that would actually make life a lot better for pedestrians and cyclists.
There was enough, this good, I used to cycle a lot, but I didn't, I've got an injury that I couldn't cycle, and this is the problem, but I used to cycle from Beckenham to Westminster every day, over Crystal Palace Hill. Police stopped me, said, "Do you know what speed you use?" I about 25. I said, "No, 38. What? He said, "You can't do that, but just be careful." I said, "Oh, thanks for the warning." Well, I've been hit twice coming down from on the wrong side, going down by Morrison's. Don't know what speed they're doing, but they were clearly doing about 30 or 40 at that point.
Yeah.
And it just barged through you. And
yeah. These are all the considerations that we need.
Education is the most important thing.
That will be really key. I've got Paul Best online.
Hello. From the railway point of view, light railway, I was just wondering if there's going to be any extra signs, particularly for pedestrians trying to find. So we have terrible trouble getting people to the railway. The road signs are set up for cars and they're not set up for pedestrians. So you come out the station and there's nothing. It's just that sort of thing, if you can have all these cycle paths and everything else, are there going to be some nice, clear road signs and walkway signs?
It's a good point. It's a good point, Paul. What one Active Travel England do suggest is wayfaring is one of the key things when we're looking at improvement. So actually, that's a good point. So if you're having a look at the map and you apply to the consultation, pop a little note on that map to say it'd be great to actually advertise these local areas of interest and point that out on where you actually want it to be.
Yeah, again, it's another
certainly will.
Faversham Town Council, I think with some of the UK SPF money, worked with Swale on wayfinding, which again linked in with their SWIP, and it does really help for people to know where they're heading. And again, follows on from our previous conversation. We hopefully want to attract people to town using public transport. And the point's well made there. Where do they then go from there? It's not very clear at the moment, and linking that in would be great. Please do take a look at it, Paul, because actually there's quite some interesting routes that do pass heritage assets and other areas of interest for people. And so getting that feedback from Sittingbourne and Thames Light Railway would be really good. I'd encourage other organisations, the Court Hall, likewise. You can really see that we can drive pedestrians not just to walk down the straight linear roads that cars take, but take alternative routes as well that will take in some of the other areas in town. Were there any other questions or comments from people? No? Yeah.
So it's brilliant argument which you use Bible not there. As part of the presentation, is there any plans, how you make back, I mean, come back, use the bike for, you know, stop somewhere for a coffee, in terms of, you know, security, use security bike, you know, that plans for that, you know, strategy.
Yeah, there isn't in this bit, there isn't, this is purely about routes.
Yeah.
However, when I have a whip in place, what I can then do is bid for Active Travel England money. I don't get any money really from them now because I don't have a whip in place, but once I have one, I can then bid for things like cycle storage. So I did place a bid for cycle storage across the borough this year, was not successful. Main reason, didn't have a whip. So it's what comes first, chicken or the egg.
Yeah. And sorry, just a quick follow-up as well. In terms of obviously using the routes as well, are there plans to, you know, encourage, especially young people, anyone really, just to, you know, in the first place, even get the bicycle, you know, we know things are hard. Is any incentive plan to incorporate, you know?
We fortunately do have a scheme in the borough where bikes are refurbished over at one of the prisons on the island and then sold at a heavy discount to people. And that's I know there's lots of people in my ward that have bought those for their kids to get to and from school. So yeah, that would, you know, really link into this sort of stuff to promote that. And again, where you can get developer contributions to again promote that further, perhaps on their new development when it comes forward. And I think that sort of infrastructure, again, linking into a previous conversation, the safety of storing your bike outside Sittingbourne station. I know lots of people would never dream of doing that. You just walk past and see the remnants of so many of them there. So hopefully Michelle can link in with Freya to sort of do something around that as well to make that more viable. Likewise outside supermarkets, so that people have that option to safely store their bikes at those. Thank you very much for your presentation. Really would encourage people to go and take a look at those maps. A lot of them are very, very intuitive. I don't know every area in town to say that they all are. So that's where all of your feedback would come in really handy. So we're going to quickly move now to agenda item 7, which is consultation on public toilets. There might be quite a few comments on this, I don't know, but the consultation has been live for some time. So hopefully everybody's had their opportunity to feed into that. But I will bring in Andre now to talk about what is going on with this consultation at the moment.
Okay. Great, perfect. So good evening, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Andre Bowen, and I'm the Service Improvement and Project Manager here at Seoul Borough Council. And I'll go through to you what work has been done regarding the new public toilet facilities review. Next slide, please. So in this presentation, we will go through the current facilities within Swell, the different ways in which the service could be delivered, what we think is the most reasonable option, the consultation process, how the final decision will be made, and then at the end, I'm happy to take any suggestions or respond to any questions as best as I can. Next slide, please. So we currently have 16 public toilet facilities across Swell. And here, as you can see, they've been divided across committee areas. Next slide, please. So we do want to make savings that will help the council reach a balanced budget position. So we've explored the benefits of delivering all the services in-house. We've looked at the continuing outsourcing. We've also looked at closing all the toilets. We've looked at possibly charging for the use of public toilet facilities. We've also looked at transferring public toilet facilities to town or parish councils or other appropriate organizations. And we've also looked into the community toilet scheme model. Next slide, please. Now, I have to admit, it is difficult to choose one option because, frankly, all of them have disadvantages. So as such, we think the right mix is to transfer to town and parish councils. Also, who would be able to keep public toilets open in their respective areas and respond to local demand. We're proposing also closing 3 toilets out of a list that have the lowest usage that might have significant refurbishment costs or ongoing maintenance, and other factors that we'll look into. We're also looking into proposing a new community toilet scheme by partnering with local businesses that would offer the public free of use their facilities during their opening hours, and continue to operate the remaining 6 outsourced toilets. Next slide, please. So just to stress the point here that these are proposals at the moment that will go to committee, but at this stage we want to have the views of all Swale residents, visitors, community groups and businesses. So to make sure we get as many people are aware of this consultation as much as possible, we've put posters in all the toilets. We have posters in our office along with paper forms. We've published details on our website and social media. We've also shared with the local press, and we've also contacted as many local community groups as possible, businesses and parish and town councils. But last but not least, we are also doing a presentation at all the area committee meetings, and we've extended the consultation period as long as possible. Do want to make note that area chair committees are also welcome to provide a response for toilets that are in unparished areas. And we have contact details there on that slide. Next slide, please. So at the end of the day, we do want to make sure that our public toilet facilities operate in the best possible way for the future. In doing so, we will review the views expressed in the consultation. We're going to look at the location of the facilities, the amount of people who visit daily, the cost to operate, the condition, the amount of antisocial behavior reports, and we're going to also look at what other local authorities are doing. So the information that is gathered will carefully be considered by councillors before any final decisions are made. And we are committed to ensuring that the voices of local communities are heard and reflected in the decision-making process. So I do encourage you, if you haven't already done so, please complete the survey, which from the previous slide you'll see is available for contributions up until 3rd of October, Friday next week. Next slide, please. So that does conclude my presentation, and I am happy to take on board any suggestions anyone might have, or if there are any questions, please feel free to ask through the chair.
Well, thank you very much for that, Andre. So I'll come to Councillor Watson first.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm small observation. Toilets that are within this area, communities within it, are, of course, we're unparished. We are out of the list, it's very clear, and I'd hate for us to have to close toilets, but sometimes you have to make difficult decisions. Out of the ones that become under this area, this is my personal opinion, because of the town centre, we have got a number of coffee shops and establishments that have toilets that people are able to use. The toilets at the forum, I have witnessed have been quite a bit of a difficulty. They're not very pleasant. We have problems with lighting around the building, which makes it even more exciting. Yes, exciting. So it's in my opinion, and as I said, this is purely my opinion. I think we have to seriously look at the forum as being possible for a closure. As I said, I hate to have to close them into one place. The ones near the library are used reasonably well. I'm always seeing people going in and out of there, they're well kept. But the ones at the forum are not our nicest, I personally don't think. So we're quite lucky we have got Costa and stuff like other cafes are available. The lights, we also have a number of other places where people can use them.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think we're in an odd situation where we do have a shopping centre that doesn't provide its own toilets. And I think the part the usage of those toilets used to be when the market was in that car park as well, and that's now on the high street. So we do have the library car park toilets, which if I have to prefer to use any, if I'm caught short, then I would definitely use the ones up by the library. And like you say, the forum ones have been closed quite a bit because of the issues that have been happening there. And with the development of Bourne Place, most people now using that area are going to use the light Santado, Fernando's or Costa, or as you say, other businesses in that vicinity, which all have customer toilets. We had Tony and then Councillor Richard Palmer.
Right, I made my views quite clear at the July Parliament meeting, speaking as the councillor, and I felt that the Milton High Street toilets should stay open. Now, I with the heritage area of Milton Regis, and I think it's very important they stay open. Getting back to the town centre, counts, what's basically there are two toilets within the town centre, which we've got the main ones from the library, and we've got the ones at the hall. Now, it makes sense to me. I understand there's going to be savings made, but to keep the two open in the town and shut the Milton ones, to me, is absolutely ridiculous. So it's very paramount to me that the Milton ones should stay open. I've been actively getting out of the High Street Society and the Cold Hall and the questionnaires, which I've taken in personally. I think quite a few gone in. So my view is, as I say, it's going to go before the committee. With our leaflet, went out to 2,500 households within Milton, advising people to answer the consultation. I don't know exactly how many have answered it. They obviously haven't closed yet. But Milton High Street toilet should definitely stay in my view. No doubt the people.
Is that a proposal for the area committee?
Yeah, proposal for the area committee. Yes, we haven't got a parish council to take that forward.
Okay, so you want, yeah, okay, so I'll hold that as a proposal from Councillor Winkless.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll come to Richard Palmer, please.
Yeah, I can see what Tony's saying about the organised in the town. You have to consider. You say about people using it, and you say I'm quite young and I can rush up to the centre, but you've got buses stopping there. And what people use the buses, or either very young and perhaps come run and get to the centre, but you've got older people or people with poor mobility, and perhaps there might not be a significant number of people, but people made representations on me saying they're worried that if they close, they won't be able to get the centre, or they will have great problems. So again, and a lot of people don't like going into the Costa Coffee or a pub just to use it for. A lot of people don't actually want it.
No.
If you're not paying, why should they pick up the bill?
Yeah.
So I don't think that approach is the right approach. I think we need to think about the demographic also who uses it. And I think, public toilets came about in the Victoria range for public health reasons. By closing them, do we face the danger of increasing public health problems yet again? Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And the bus hub location is a valid point to raise about where those toilet facilities are. I've got you noted, Jackie, there's just a couple of people. We've got the representative from the court hall.
Yes. My name is Alison Dursley, I'm current chairman of things. We lease from Sittingbourne Council. We are just a charity. How can I put it? We're self-funding and we've got 761 visitors so far this year into Milton High Street. I'm by far the youngest member of our stewards. Most of them are getting towards the octogenarian stage. Without being rude at all, we're there for 6 hours at a time, some of us, and obviously we need to go somewhere. Regardless of our visitors that we bring into the area, and we are really, really struggling to be able to do that. We'd like to bring more people, we'd like to have more events. But for the vast majority of the time, the toilets have been closed. If we have, you know, a school group, brownies, guides, whatever, we can't really ask the cafe if 15 children can go in and use the toilet because, you know, we need to. So for the benefit of the heritage in Milton and keeping that football open and running for the benefit of everyone, Milton toilets, in my estimation, should stay open. As an aside to that, having taken over as chairman, when I was an active steward, I was informed that Swarborough Council had a gentleman's agreement to keep those toilets open at the times that the football was open. Now, I have no formal written notice of that, but it was definitely a gentleman's agreement. As I say, over the period that they were closed, we did struggle with people having accidents, needing to go to different bars. You can't send children into a pub because they need to go to the toilet. So in my estimation, Milton toilets should be right at the top. And if you've ever visited them, by the way, they are a heritage item all by themselves. So from that, that's my point of view.
Yeah, thank you very much. Jackie?
Yeah, right. One of the big problems is that as a diabetic, I've got to get, I can't go too far because I've always got other problems. But last bus comes in to Sittingbourne at 10 o'clock, if it's on time. It normally is, normally early actually, but it's due at 10 o'clock, and that's 9 o'clock from Canterbury. But of course, because of all the chaos, as mentioned earlier about the road, all the roadwork causing problems, it's getting later and later. People can't, and the nearest tourist, they don't like going to, most of the cafes are closed.
Yeah.
And obviously they can't get anywhere. They can't possibly go, you know. So that they're thinking, they're not thinking, yes, we're better if them tourists didn't, but they were actually in the forum, and the forum was actually open, or somewhere like that. There's places you can put them where they'd actually be near the bus stop, and this is the problem. You know, because some people might be on the bus when well over now, if you come from Canterbury, they might have to come from somewhere else and not a chance to use a toilet in Canterbury. It is a problem.
It's a very fair point, and taxi drivers have also spoken to me about how they use their forum toilets when they're open. So there is definitely a consideration about
Yeah, I mean,
transport links in that.
you need to. It's something that needs to be looked at. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can wave a magic wand, but
No.
there is a problem. There is certainly something to be looked at.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think as a budget target, I think it should be bottom of the list. We heard a very good exposition today about recycling, the money being spent on this very good scheme. But let us stop and think. Is it better to spend money on somewhere to go to the toilet or somewhere to ride a bike? Can you answer me that, Andre?
Just before bringing Andre in, I suppose, just to say quickly about the Elsie whips, obviously that's about accessing grant funding, which we wouldn't be able to use for public toilet provision, but it's still a very valid point that if we're encouraging people to take more journeys on foot and by bike, then arguably they need toilet provision available to them. So was there anything that you further wanted to add to that, Andre?
I think, yeah, they are both quite important, but I think looking at the current situation and what other local authorities are doing, we do try to make sure we are spending in the best way possible. And this is just partly why we're reviewing the public toilets, but I can't actually say actually money shouldn't be spent on travel routes rather than toilets, but
And like I say, that the Elsie whip was about attracting grant funding or developer contributions, which is slightly different. It's new money rather than this ongoing thing that we have. And I suppose a lot of people do find it surprising that there is no real requirement of councils to have public toilet provision, unfortunately. So this is something that in the context of budget pressures, it's quite difficult that we're even having to have these conversations, of course. Yeah.
Well, I feel that if you don't, doesn't get settled, that men will just urinate in the street.
Yeah.
And women.
Yeah.
And then you have a
I
big
mean,
problem.
we saw it with gypsies in the park and the cost of clearing that up.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me come back, councillor Wise. One thing I didn't get to say, my first, spill, well, not literally spill, but my comments. I'm also trying to find out, I've emailed the development officer in connection about when there was a agreement, with the Colt Hall some years ago. My side of it is your local council, to see if there was an agreement on it. So I am waiting on a comeback from that on the development officer. Okay? Something that's figured.
Okay, councillor Cheeseman, and then we'll come back to councillor Winkler's proposal and ask if anyone wants to amend that, broaden it or whatever. Councillor Cheeseman.
Toilet scheme. I think that's would be a pretty good thing. I mean, especially if you're going on perhaps an on-site ride, in a pub somewhere close, there's yes, anybody can come and use our toilets, but don't have to buy a drink. So I think it's really important we can get a lot of businesses sign up. I think they put a sign outside their business to say this is a member of the community toilet scheme, and people can come in and use their facilities without having to.
Yeah, thank you.
Chief Executive Advisor. I came into Sittingbourne with four of my grandchildren. Four-year-old needed the loo. I went to four on the toilets. I came up and I made her hold it, and we went to the one by the library because I didn't think it was. I mean, I had other children with me. And I was like, don't touch that, don't touch that. So I think there is also an issue. I understand what you're saying about something being there, but it's got to be good enough to be used as well. And if it's not, and people are doing what I did, and that's the basic thing I had, I was like, oh, no, come on, we're going to go. And we went to the ones by the library, and they were okay. You know, I felt they were safe and they were. So actually, I do think there is an element about not just providing, I think it's what you said.
Yeah.
If people will go in and not think that they're very good, that's probably not good.
Yeah, and I think there's also a point around some of the public toilets we have are not ones we would provide now. You know, a lot of toilets, when public toilet provision is now provided, modern public toilet provision, it's individual cubicles where you go off the street into that toilet. There's no shared, so that they are different considerations around this.
It's a self-defeating argument, isn't it? You should upgrade them.
Yeah, no, I totally appreciate it. That's just a broader comment around where you look at some of the other toilets that we have provided and upgraded. It's why I was keen that with some of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund money, we look to improve the toilet provision that we do have. In particular, was very keen that also we say for town centre provision in each of our town centres. I think some people looking at the consultation, if you haven't, as Andre said, you've still got a week to respond. Please do get your comments in on that. People see that both the library and forum car parks are on there, and I just don't see there could be a proposal when both of those close at all. But there is a proposal from Councillor Winkler's that we put forward a submission from the area committee that says that the Milton Regis High Street toilets don't close. I need a seconder for that. Councillor Watson. Does anybody wish to propose an amendment to that proposal? No? Okay. So for members, can I take a vote on Councillor Winkler's proposal? Those in favour? Any members against? Any members abstaining? Okay, that's going forward as a proposal from the Sittingbourne Area Committee. Anything else? Any further comments? Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say, in respect of the forum versus the library car park situation, notwithstanding what Councillor Palmer said, you could have somebody at the bottom end of the town, because people do come and access the town at the bottom end, there's no toilets at that end, so they've then got to hold themselves until they get up to the top end. And frankly, I don't think there's anywhere else in this borough where we have toilets quite so close together as that. So my suggestion would be, and again, looking at the state of the ones in the forum, I'd much rather take my children, my family, to those of the library car park, but I definitely would not want to see them both building. Absolutely not at all.
Okay, those comments are heard. There's no further proposals from members. So we've made our proposal for the Sittingbourne Area Committee as a contribution to that. That brings a close to that item.
Can you just make a suggestion? Malcolm at the Three Huts had a sign up at one point where people could use the toilets if they made a donation to charity. I don't know if it still does that.
Yeah.
It might be worthwhile saying, no, but I mean, some of the people might say, oh, that'd be fair enough.
Yeah, no, I think Councillor Cheesham's made the point about pursuing the community toilet scheme regardless, and those sorts of conversations we've had with small businesses on that. So thank you very much for people's contributions on that item. We now move to agenda item 8, public forum. Are there any members of the public who wish to ask a question? No. We've had quite a lot of contributions from people here, which has been good on previous topics. Agenda item 9, local issues to be raised. Do members have any issues you'd like to raise on behalf of local residents or communities? Yeah, okay. I'll bring in Chris Palmer and then I'll bring in Councillor Lucas.
This is my colleague at KCC, children with CNDs, and it's really public documents that I needed to looking out to people. We're doing a workshop at Detley Hill, and parents send children to help support them with their children integrating from primary to secondary education. There's a free bus service that will take people from Sheffield and Sittingbourne to Detley Hill, where it's a showground where the workshops are going to be. We're going to go on the 16th of October from 10 to 4 p.m. and the bus service will be like a shuttle to pick people up, take them to Detley, and then there'll be another bus to take them back free of charge. There's been a lot of issues in KCC from school allocations this year, that's from last year. And we want to try and give as much support to make next year's
smoother process. Yeah.
So if people wanted to take a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great. And if those details could be shared round as well to councillors, that'd be great. I'm sure that councillors would like to promote that. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
If Councillor Palmer, if you could email the details to me, I can circulate them to all the councillors in this area.
Okay. Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. Conservation of drawings are really that's what the feedback's from back on the hospital.
Sorry, you speak up slightly.
Yeah. Conservation rules in the heritage area. First, a building reached again, which the Middle Private Big Society built up, the last one. Designs and signs adverse for children consideration determination, planning application level, adverse consent, which is the answer. We had a walk round actually fact with the heritage officer on Tuesday. Tuesday. I felt it was a very worthwhile walk round with the people behind me. And she clarified that the ones that had been reported were under investigation.
Yeah.
There was a couple that we hadn't got noted, which she did note. Another request that came in from the High Street Society was the fact that could the shopkeepers be notified, advising them about what they can do and what they can't do if they actually breach.
Yeah.
And I'll see at the end of this, and I'll read it out, an update to the shop front design guidance is scheduled for 2026, which will refresh and update the design guidance. So, because this is a big issue within the High Street.
No, I saw the readout from that as well, so it's good that the ward councillors helped facilitate that walkabout. I'm sure that was very productive.
Yeah.
Were there, Councillor Watson?
Yeah. Like what happened, there's today, we've got a few events coming up, you're not too distant future on the 1st of October at the Willows Day Centre in Milton. There is an open afternoon from 1:30 to 4, that you can come and see what they do. 6th of October, there's a dementia event at the Swallows, ask the experts from 10 till 3. And of course, we have the unavailable event Regis sign on the 11th of October, and very much looking forward to it.
And there's also the unveiling of the Kemsley sign at the end of October as well. Looking forward to that. Were there any other points from members? I will allow it. That's fine.
At the last area committee meeting is when Milton Regis Society suggested that the shopkeepers were notified, and residents as well, of the do's and don'ts. And you have said, well, yes, you do have guidance on this matter, but the point is that it doesn't reach the residents, it doesn't reach the shopkeepers. That's what needs to be addressed, really.
What I've seen as the readout from that was that the Heritage Officer did undertake to pull something together that would be sent out to everybody that lives in that area. So, yeah,
That is correct.
that's correct. So that will be done. So that will be shared with the ward councillors before it goes out. So I've seen that that is the undertaking on that. And I'm sure that as you did the walkabout, there's some of the other issues to know, because I know that you raised issues about where waste bins were being stored and things like that as well. So hopefully that's all being taken forward in one go. Was there anything else for members on this? No. Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 10, matters arising. So you'll see in the agenda pack, that's where this bit here is matters arising. I don't propose that we go through them all, but is there any that stand out? Obviously, Councillor Winklish was speaking to one of those already. Was there anything else that anybody wished to comment on? Just to say on item 7, which is the Swale Local Heritage List, I believe that process is open again now for people to suggest places. So yeah, just to let people know about that. Obviously, we've looked at item 8 as part of our substantive discussion here this evening, which I hopefully everyone agree was very worthwhile. And if there aren't any further comments on that, it brings us on to agenda item 11, which is related to it as well, which is the local bus forum minutes for noting, and just asking whether Councillor Winklish and Councillor Watson, who are reps, want to add anything on that.
I have no more further comments.
No further comments.
I have no further comments except to say the next meeting of it is the 15th of October.
Yeah. So remember, we have 2 representatives to the bus forum, Councillor Watson, Councillor Winklish. Do bombard them with emails with anything that you want to have sent over to the bus forum. Their inbox is open to all comments on buses.
We'll get this, mate. We'll get it.
I sent you one at 2 o'clock this morning.
No, that's it. Not early.
Agenda item 12, matters to be referred to service committee chairs for consideration. We had something from the last meeting from Councillor Watson, which was about the High Street. That is being picked up through the Economy and Property Service Committee. Anything that needs to come forward to the committee on that will happen in due course, but not, I believe, at the next scheduled meeting, but I am aware of conversations around that. Are there any other items that members or matters that members would like to refer to Service Committee? No? Okay. That brings us to the close of this meeting. Thank you very much for everybody's perseverance with this, but hopefully it hasn't felt like a chore, because I think the discussions we had were very worthwhile and hopefully very informative for everyone. Thank you very much. Close the meeting at 21:15.